What's going on, Broncos Country? Mailbag edition here at the channel. I'm going to answer questions that you guys had that aired during our live show, which was Tuesday at 3 o'clock Mountain Time, 4 o'clock Central. So we're going to start off with a super chat coming in from BLD2342. Which UDFA has the best chance at making the 53-man roster? Denver's got a long and rich history of UDFAs making the 53-man roster. They had one last year. They've had one for several straight years. I'm looking at the list right now. I'm going to give you two names to kind of be a coward and double my chances. But P.J. Mustafa from Penn State, he's good, and he comes at a position of need for Denver. Interior defensive line, in my opinion. The other one I'm going to go with is the Illinois tackle, Alex Palczewski. Denver doesn't really have a clear-cut swing tackle right now. So there is a spot for a UDFA like that to emerge and maybe crack the 53-man roster. Kitchener Leslie, tell all your friends, Broncos Breakdown. Also, what pieces should we get as UDFAs? Which veterans will be available? Well, for UDFAs, I'm going to steal the answer I had from the last question. As for, designated positions, you just take the best player available, right? You just look for talent, you look for hidden gems, and you find a spot for them later on if you're crowded in that room. As for veteran players that are still available, depending on when you're watching this, some of these guys might have been signed as we're recording this live on Tuesday. I think defensive end would be a nice get for Denver, or running back. Frank Clark at the defensive end spot. Shelby Harris, I would love a reunion. Running backs, call me crazy. Call me just a big name chaser. Zeke, for short line situation and pass protection, wouldn't hate it. Robert2424, with the drafting of Riley Moss, PS2, and more defensive playmakers, is the return of no-fly zone back? Also, sign Shelby Harris. I'm with you on signing Shelby Harris. Would like to see him come back and help this defensive line, pair up with Zach Allen, be opposite him. As for the no-fly zone return, you got two key pieces of it, right? You got your pilot in Patrick Surtain and your co-pilot in Justin Simmons. But we all know, waiting for Southwest, they will not take off without all the stewardess and all the flight attendants. So you need that ensemble too. And if Riley Moss and or Damari Mathis can be a near-ish Pro Bowl level, I mean, it's tough to somewhat grade players at a Pro Bowl level because the Pro Bowl is an absolute joke right now. But you know Pro Bowl talent when you see it. If you get those three, we can get in-flight beverage service and we can get the no-fly zone back. I'm going to need something on Damari Mathis or Riley Moss definitively with my own eyes to believe it before I can say it's returned. Official Juan 400, should the Broncos sign Elliott to a one-year deal? Like I was saying earlier, I would not be upset about this, right? If I get a notification that Denver has signed Zeke, would not be opposed. Now, Zeke somewhat came out with a preemptive list of where he would sign. Did not include the Broncos. It had the Cowboys, and this was a rumored list, if I remember correctly, too. Cowboys, Bengals, kind of go back to the Buckeye State. The Eagles were on it, and one more team, and I can't remember, but it doesn't matter. But if no team comes calling, yeah, I think Zeke in short yardage situation kind of alleviate the burden, the workload for Samaje Perine, especially if Javonte Williams is out more than just 4, 5, 6 weeks, and we approach 8, 9, or 10. Yeah, I think adding another running back would be a good move for Sean and George Payton. Yolk, thoughts on Sean Payton smoking? This is the biggest question in all of Denver right now. I'll try and keep it short, but I don't have an issue with it, right? I'm not a cop. I'm not DEA, so I don't have a big beef to squash with Sean Payton smoking. He's somewhat trying to become one of the locals, right? He wants to fit in. If Sean Payton got blackout on Bourbon Street when he was hired by the Saints, I think Saints fans would say, one of us, one of us. Sean Payton wants to rip a bong on 420? Cool beans. Welcome to Mile High, bro, and way to be high. So, with that being said, that's our Sean Payton smoking segment of the show. David, think we can beat KC this year? It's the National Football League. Crazy stuff happens all the time. Do I have a path or a plan, an X's and O's standpoint for getting it done? No. My plan is, it's the NFL. Crazy shit happens. That's not much of a strategy to go in with right now. But do they have a chance? Sure. Tom Brady did not go undefeated against the Jets, the Bills, and the Dolphins in his long career. I'm going to be confident that Patrick Mahomes will not be the same in the AFC West or with the Broncos. First time super chatter right now, Mason Greenwood. Should the Broncos sign Trent Harris from the XFL? I have not watched much XFL football. I'll be honest. I reserve this football temple of a body, if you will, for the fall only. So if an XFL star emerges, yeah. I mean, why not bring him in for a, maybe not 90-man roster spot, but for a audition, a practice, if you will. But I don't have strong feelings one way or the other when it comes to signing XFL players. Broncos 69. Should the Broncos bring back Phillip Lindsay? Ooh, talking about running backs here and talking about an all-time Broncos legend and UDFA. So we're really hitting all the buttons right there. Philip Lindsay, stats over the last 4 seasons. Thank you, McCullough, working on the fly. Good producer. We're talking about a 1,000-yard rusher back in 2019, right? Pro Bowl running back as a UDFA. But he has fallen off a cliff, unfortunately. Fell out of favor in Houston. He was briefly with the Colts. Now he's in the XFL. So talking about bringing back XFL guys. Listen, I think Denver should sign a running back. I saw a story about Lindsay wanting to come back. I'm sure he wants to come back to Denver. I'm sure he wants to come back to the NFL. There's more or less, a whole new regime in place than when Phillip Lindsay was originally signed as a UDFA. So I don't know how deep the connections run to Dove Valley. But they could use an extra running back. So I will not say no to any running backs right now. So let's show the guy some love, though. Let's type his old jersey number 30 down in the comment section below if you want to bring back Phillip Lindsay to, help keep the run game afloat until Javonte Williams can return. Budget breakdown NFL. Will the Broncos have a top 5 run game if Javonte Williams returns strong, considering most of our offensive linemen are elite or above average run blockers? The issue I run into, budget breakdown, is Saquon Barkley and J.K. Dobbins, our 2 running backs most recently, who came back from not necessarily identical injuries, but major ACL and knee ligament tear injuries, where it was not your average ACL recovery where it's, 8 to 10 months and you're as good as new. Now we have this, great medical experience or medical profession in 2023. I'm not shocked if Javonte Williams comes back and has a similar return like KJ Hamler last year, where maybe it's a bit on the early side, they test it out, and they have to shut it back down again. If Javonte Williams comes back and doesn't skip a beat, yeah, Ben Powers and Mike McGlinchey, Quinn Miners, those are offensive linemen who love to run the football. They get offended when they are asked to pass protect because they don't get to pancake and run people over like bulldozers. But I do have concerns about even when Williams does return, let's say it's week 7. Don't expect Javonte Williams to rush for 100 yards in his first game back. He might not even get more than 10 carries. He's coming off that serious of a knee injury, unfortunately. Jeremiah Williams, how do you feel about trading KJ Hamler for Ed Oliver or KJ and Lloyd Cushenberry for Ed Oliver? This is kind of like your bad fantasy football trade in your fantasy football league. That one guy who just wants to give you a bunch of garbage for one good player. Ed Oliver, a top pick for the Bills 4 years ago now, has been good, probably a bit underwhelming for where he was selected in the draft. I don't see why Buffalo would swap Ed Oliver, a starting defensive lineman, for a guy like KJ Hamler, who unfortunately is still making his way back from a serious injury and has not looked like the second-round pick really once in his career, outside of some nice touchdown long plays, but not over a consistent time span. Make sure to subscribe, by the way, if you are not already. We continue to try and grow this channel, and our next milestone is 14,000 subscribers. So if you are looking for a Broncos YouTube channel this offseason that's going to put out content during the dog days of the offseason, you are at the right spot. Hit that sub button down below. Mountain Life 420, this is where Sean Payton was. Any chance the Broncos trade for Dalvin Cook since they didn't draft a running back? Well, we are filming this live on Tuesday, so hopefully this does not get dated, but I don't think Denver can be ruled out of any running back acquisition. I think they will do their homework on running backs. Dalvin Cook is very intriguing because he does have that George Payton connection, and as fans and media members, what we love to do most is connect dots and go, Well, if Payton was there, surely he will want Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook is coming off a bit of a down-ish season. Like, he was still 1,100-yard rusher and 8 touchdowns. But 4.4 yards per carry, that was a low for him in his career. And it feels like the needle is pointing down. I think Dalvin Cook is probably going to be a Miami Dolphin when it's all said and done. I just don't think Denver wants to give up what it might cost for Dalvin Cook, a day 3-ish pick that's not just a 7th rounder, when they're not looking for a running back long term. They're looking for someone to just hold down the fort until Javonte Williams can return. But what do you guys think? Should the Broncos trade for Dalvin Cook? Yes or no? Keep it simple. Y for yes or N for no down in the comment section below. Tyler J, a 6 TBH. I would have loved the UCLA QB who went early, or Max Duggan from TCU. Yeah, Denver did not pick a quarterback in this draft class. It's a bit of a surprise to me. I don't know if the board just didn't work out the way they wanted it to, where they're like, hey, we like, say, Aiden O'Connell, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and Jake Haener, but we don't like them enough in round 3. So if they're there in round 6, awesome. But they were not there in round 6. So they didn't want to force a pick maybe, and the guys they liked at the respective rounds, they weren't there. So as for adding a quarterback, I think that probably bodes well for a little bit more vote of confidence for Russell Wilson moving forward. Last question coming in from Pedro Lucas. Which of the rookies should be starters? We can pull up the rookie class, Mr. McCullough. The 5 players that Denver selected. I've got a sleeper for you guys. I've got a sleeper. Now, they started off, of course, with Marvin Mims. Now, barring any injuries, he's going to be a special teamer early in his career, and he's going to have some, maybe some jet sweeps, right, or some design plays to flood him down the sideline. Drew Sanders, barring any injuries, he's probably going to be the 3rd-string inside linebacker, right, the next guy after Josie Jewell or Alex Singleton. Riley Moss is going to have a fair shot of starting. He will compete with Damari Mathis for that other CB2 job. J.L. Skinner and Alex Forsythe, oddly enough, their last 2 picks in the draft, might have the best chance of starting, right? Because if Caden Stearns still has hip injuries early on, and they don't return Kareem Jackson, J.L. Skinner could be starting next to Justin Simmons as a 6th-rounder. And if Alex Forsythe just flat out beats Lloyd Cushenberry for the starting center job, boom. Your last 2 picks might have the best path of actually starting just because they don't have a ton of ice to break through above them. So that would be my pick right there of best chance for a rookie to start. I'll go with J.L. Skinner. He fell in the draft because of a pec injury he suffered before the combine. Really good missile-flying type radar, type safety out of Boise State. That's going to do it for us on this mailbag. Make sure to subscribe if you have not already. Hit that sub button down below, and we'll see everyone later.